Hey everybody, it's Matt Mayock at NBC Sports Bay Area. No, it's really not as cold as it looks. I did take the dog for a walk this morning, Thursday morning, but got some like bandage stuff on my ears, so I don't want to gross you out by that. So I'm just decided to make it as if I'm still in Buffalo. How's that? Kind of dressed like I was Sunday night when the 49ers played the Buffalo Bills. Hey, this video is brought to you by Canyon Club Brewery. It's located in Moraga, California, off of 24. If you haven't been, you should check it out. They have a great variety of beers, also a very tasty menu items for food, nice outdoor patio area with a fire pit, family friendly, dog friendly. It's the spot to go, and it's coming soon to the Livery in Danville. So check that out. All right, on this video, I guess this might be kind of considered a clickbaitish video, but enough people are talking about it, and Mike Florio wrote about it at NBC or at Pro Football Talk, one of our NBC affiliated sites. I guess we're kind of teammates, but he suggested that the Chicago Bears contact the 49ers about a possible trade for Kyle Shanahan. And, is that ever going to happen? The trade, I mean? No. Um, but would it be worth the Bears to reach out to John Lynch or Jed York and discuss? Probably not. But hey, the 49ers play the Bears this week. So who knows what would happen there as far as if the Bears would actually think about that, as far as even going to the 49ers and seeing that if that's possible. But when I heard about Florio's suggestion, the first thing I thought of was basically the line that Kyle Shanahan says every year around the opening of the new league year when talks about, Brandon Ayuk, are they going to trade him? Deebo Samuel, is he open for a trade? What's going on? Who might they trade? Who might they keep? And I think one of the last times that Shanahan was asked about it, he kind of basically says the same thing over and over. But what Shanahan has said, and this is a direct quote, we'll listen to anything. We'll listen if someone wants to trade for John Lynch. If someone wants to trade for me, I'm sure John Lynch will listen. We'll listen on anything. So that's kind of the jumping off point for this kind of not a realistic scenario, but something that he's said it out there that hey, the organization will listen to anything that people have to offer. As far as Shanahan, he was originally signed. At least the previous contract extension was through 2025, which is next year. But early last season, it was announced that he had signed a multi-year contract extension. So I take multi-year to mean 2 years. So that would mean that he would be under contract to the 49ers through the 2027 season. And so, I think it's pretty clear he's not going anywhere unless he wants to go somewhere else or whatever. I would think that the onus would be on him. There's no chance the 49ers are making a change at the top this offseason when you're talking about a guy who's had the kind of success that he has had. He and John Lynch together, taking a team in 2017 that had inarguably the worst roster in the NFL, and then turning them around to become a Super Bowl team, NFC champion in year three. And then, of course, 3 years before this, reaching at least the NFC championship game. And then last year, the Super Bowl. The one blemish or the one thing that you can't check off of the resume, though, is the Super Bowl title. 49ers had 5 Super Bowls, the last one coming in the season of 1994, and that was George Seifert's second Super Bowl title. And before that, Bill Walsh had 3 Super Bowl titles. So it has been a long, long time. Now, as for what Florio suggested, what he wrote at Pro Football Talk was that, he went through all the scenarios for the Bears. And I would think that the Chicago Bears would probably be the most attractive opening for any head coach this offseason. So are the Bears going to hire a first-time head coach? I don't know that they would, because I think if you look at that Bears roster, I mean they're ready to win. And Matt Eberflus was fired last week, so the Bears will be having their interim coach Thomas Brown in there. He went from offensive coordinator, he was a position coach, offensive coordinator. Now he's the interim head coach. So it'll be interesting to see what the Bears do, because a lot of eyes will be on that. A lot of eyes will be on what the Jets decide to do. But very clearly, I would think that the Bears are the number one destination for anybody who wants to be a head coach. As far as with Caleb Williams there, they got some offensive playmakers, their defense is good, so on and so forth. So Florio kind of lays out the scenarios where the Bears would look to get their head coach, and he lays out the three obvious ones. And then he said there is a fourth category that's rarely used: to hire an NFL coach of another team. The rules allow it. The prospective employer calls the coach's current team and expresses an interest. If the current team is willing, they negotiate. If an agreement on compensation is reached, the new team has the green light to make the coach an offer. And he cited what happened a decade ago with Jim Harbaugh and the 49ers. Harbaugh and the 49ers were very clearly kind of coming up on the end of their rope together, the end of the line. And as I understand it, the Cleveland Browns called the 49ers about a coordinator on their team. And Harbaugh was like, well, what about me? Or something of that nature. And it that began some talks. And ultimately, Harbaugh and the Browns didn't really Harbaugh didn't want to leave the 49ers at that point upon thinking about it. As Florio says, the 49ers had a deal in place to trade Harbaugh to the Browns. This was coming off of the three straight NFC championship games for the 49ers. But Harbaugh ultimately decided to remain with the 49ers, play out, not necessarily. I'm trying to think, did he play out his contract? I don't think he did, because he had one more year left on that deal. But, mutually decided, both sides decided to part ways. And so then the 49ers, after parting ways, let's just say it, they fired Jim Harbaugh. They really didn't have a plan in place. What they ultimately decided, Trent Baalke was in charge of the hiring process, and Adam Gase believed that he was going to be getting the job after meeting with Trent Baalke for, I think, 8 hours in Denver, and Peyton Manning supported Adam Gase. And then ultimately they hired Jim Tom Sula. We know how that worked out. One and done. Then they hire Chip Kelly. We know how that worked out. One and done. And then that's how Kyle Shanahan ended up with the 49ers. So I guess the point would be that it's very difficult to hire NFL head coaches, and you just never know what you're getting. The Cleveland Browns were mocked as, for the hiring of Bill Belichick many years ago, or actually after Bill Belichick's failure with the Browns, the New England Patriots were mocked for hiring Bill Belichick. And in fact, I think uh, some columnists even said, it was the worst hire ever in the NFL. And we all know how that turned out. So you don't know what you're getting when you hire a new coach. And, for the 49ers, and again, like I said, I fully admit that this is kind of a clickbaitish video. But if you're the 49ers, who would you hire if you decided to part ways with Kyle Shanahan? Um, would you hire Bobby Slowick? I don't think so. Um, I just don't know. I mean, I know that the people talk a lot about the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, Ben Johnson. I don't know Ben Johnson, so I don't know what kind of head coach he would be. Some people are better as coordinators than they are as head coaches. Some people are better as head coaches than they are as coordinators. And I've kind of thought that in a lot of ways that Shanahan was better as a head coach than he was as a coordinator. Um, I know that I get a lot of negativity I hear a lot, or the comments section, I'm sure below here, will have a lot of negativity about Kyle Shanahan as a play caller, as an offensive play designer, that he needs to hire an offensive coordinator. But he is generally considered a top flight NFL offensive coordinator. And that's what he's done since he's been a member of the 49ers. He's called every play other than in the preseason this year when he had Kubiak calling the plays for at least a couple of those games. So anyway, my point would be when the 49ers hired Harbaugh or fired Harbaugh, they didn't really have a solid replacement in place. Although I do believe that in the front of their mind, they thought Tom Sula would be the guy. That obviously didn't work out. They didn't really have anybody in mind that they went after to try to lock down when they fired Tom Sula. Ended up hiring Chip Kelly. So there's not a natural progression on the 49ers coaching staff that you would think, oh, that guy will be the next head coach. I can't imagine it would be Brandon Staley, who has a history of being a head coach. It wasn't very successful with the Chargers, and they get rid of him, and now look what the Chargers are doing with Jim Harbaugh. So I don't see like the price would be so significant for the Bears, I think, to get Shanahan. So I'm just addressing this because it's kind of out there, and I know it's a talking point with a lot of people. But what was also interesting was toward the bottom after Florio does mention uh, Shanahan, and that's where the Bears should go because visibility to get a lot out of quarterbacks and offenses. And then they do mention that if it's not Shanahan, how about the Dolphins' Mike McDaniel, or the Browns coach Kevin Stefanski, or the Ravens coach John Harbaugh? So I don't know. I think all those scenarios, um, maybe I don't know, maybe McDaniel or Stefanski would make a little bit of sense. Maybe more, yeah, I would say both of those could be uh, people uh, that the Bears could go after. But certainly, I think if the Bears had an opportunity to get Shanahan, they would certainly do that. What the price would be, it would be exorbitant. And as far as the 49ers go, although Kyle Shanahan has said in the past, like I quoted earlier, we'll listen to anything. If someone wants to trade for me, I'm sure John Lynch will listen. I don't think the 49ers would listen. I don't think John Lynch would listen to anything another team had to say about trying to acquire Kyle Shanahan as their head coach. So that doesn't mean that there won't be changes on the coaching staff. I think that's something that everybody in the building, Shanahan, Lynch, Jed York, will have to consider. Obviously, the main positions to kind of keep an eye on would be a special teams coach, where Brian Schneider just hasn't been able to find the right answers. And it just seems like it's something different every week with the 49ers special teams units, and also defensive coordinator. Behind the scenes, it sounds like Shanahan likes the process. He likes Nick Sorensen in that role. But if the 49ers have an opportunity to get somebody that has more experience doing it, is somebody that Shanahan was going after this last offseason, and I'm mentioning specifically Jeff Ulbrich, I would think that that would be something that would give the 49ers serious consideration. But, as far as Nick Sorensen goes, I mean, there is an element of this that I just don't think we really know what kind of a defensive coordinator he is. Because if you look at, where the 49ers are right now, putting that defense out on the field, before the 49ers played the Packers in week 12, the only two starters in that game who played in the or who were starters in the NFC divisional round game against the Packers were Fred Warner and Diamador Lenore. And think about that. Fred Warner was playing on basically a fractured ankle in the game week 12. And then week 13, Lenore is out of the lineup, a huge loss at the nickelback position. And Charvarius Ward was back in. And so the only two starters on defense against the Bills who played or who started in the playoffs for the 49ers were Fred Warner on a bum ankle and Charvarius Ward, who hadn't played in more than a month after taking the bereavement leave. So I can't say that we know much about Sorensen as a defensive coordinator. And I think to expect, you know, the results of previous seasons with this current collection of 49ers defensive players is not realistic. So anyway, I just wanted to address that. And thank you so much for watching this video. And well,